Today is Friday, and that means Ask Me Anything time here on Jimmy Rants. So, ask me anything. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Come follow me right here over on Instagram. I am Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. Go check me out, you guys. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so thank you so much for being here today. We also simulcast over on my Facebook page where Judy just popped in. Thank you guys for watching as well. We also simulcast over here on the Twitch app where Saya just said good morning. So good morning to you guys as well. Twitch is the new kid on the block. Definitely go download the Twitch app. Follow me there, Jimmy Moore Rants, and you'll be able to watch the show live and watch it on the replay. If you missed the live here on Instagram, you can watch it on the replay right here at the Jimmy Rants Instagram page on IGTV. Just go check that out. It's also up on Twitch. We put it up over on YouTube as well as on the official website for this show, JimmyRants.com. So guys, we have reached yet another Friday. It's so funny, like I live all week long to get to Friday. So here we are. And Friday is a fun day here on Jimmy Rants because I literally open this floor all week long. I dictate what we talk about. I have the topic or study or whatever we're talking about that day. I do a long kind of soliloquy, reading of an article and giving you my thoughts. And then I go to you at the end. Well, Fridays is quite the different format. I literally open the floor to you guys, to literally ask me anything you want. I got a couple of great questions ahead of time that we're going to get to here in just a moment, but I definitely want to hear from you. So if you have any questions at all, even if you disagree with me, in fact, especially if you disagree with me, I want to hear. In fact, let's do that today on Ask Me Anything. Is there something that you've heard me say that you go, you know what, you say this a lot and I don't agree with it, and here's why? If you can kind of type that in there, I would love to hear some pushback because I'm not an echo chamber. I literally don't want you to go, yeah, I agree with everything you say, Jimmy. I literally love it when people go, you know, you said this and I really don't buy into it and I'm not sure why you believe that. Can you clarify why you believe it? I did this on Facebook today, by the way, where this gentleman was talking about face masks, and he said something along the lines of, I just don't understand why anyone would not wear a face mask. It just seems so heartless and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, he seems like he's being cool about it. And so I engage in the conversation and explain my position about not wearing a mask, but being respectful of other people by not opening my mouth and letting spit fly everywhere, and that I don't do well when I'm wearing a mask, and therefore I don't wear one, but I'm not causing people harm because I'm keeping my mouth shut. He wrote me back and he's like, wow, like I never considered if you went out in public not wearing a mask that you could keep your mouth shut and that actually solves the problem. See, this is the fine art of conversation that I wish we could get back into again. It's so easy to just jump to conclusions of, well, somebody's not wearing a mask and I think they should, so they're a bad person. But he truly asked and I answered and we had a conversation. Now he understands, okay, there's some people that don't do well with it. In his mind, he just thought anybody that did not wear one was a jerk. So, anywho, if you have a question for me and you want to push back on something I assert, please do write that down. Or any question about keto, fasting, cholesterol, all the usual suspect things I talk about, or anything I brought up on Jimmy Rants. But before we get into the questions, you guys, I have, as always, a few little headline things to read to you. And you might have heard about this GameStop story. If you're not into investing, you might not know much about this story. Definitely got a lot of attention in the media the past couple of days, and you might not really understand what happened. So I found this explanation in easy to understand terms as to what it means to short sell a stock and how people make money off that, and then how this GameStop situation shows how they stopped the short sale from happening. So in short, when you do a short stock sale, It's when you borrow stock from a broker and then you sell it immediately at its current price. Then you hope that that stock's price will fall so much that you can buy the stock back at a lower price and then return the shares to your broker, but you get to keep the difference between the price of the stock that you own versus the new price of it that's lower. You keep the difference and make a profit. That's called short sell. So for example, let's say I want to buy short XYZ stock. It has a current value and price of $10. So one share, you get it, and then you immediately sell it for $10. So now I have $10, but I owe my broker the one share. But then let's say the price of XYZ will drop. I now decide to cover it by buying it back, my short position, and I buy one share at $7. And I return that share to the broker. I made $10 when I sold the stock that I borrowed, but then I only had to pay back $7 of that $10 to buy it back. So my profit is now $3. So now let's say that's the short sale, how it's supposed to work, and how these billionaires and investors in these hedge funds make their money. But what happened in the GameStop situation, let's say that instead of the XYZ price dropping to $7, it actually goes up to $15. I still need to return that one borrowed share to my broker, except now it's going to cost me money to try to buy it back. If I buy it back at $15 so I can return the shares, my loss is going to be the $5 difference between the $10 it cost and that I got for it, and then rebuying it at $15. Since the price can rise indefinitely, which is what was happening with GameStop, my potential losses as a short seller are unlimited. At some point, I have to buy it back to return the shares I borrowed, and the more the price rises, the bigger my losses. So that's how this whole scenario played out. Hopefully that's easy to understand language where you get what's happening here. And I don't know if you caught it, but there were tens of billions of dollars lost by these hedge fund billionaires. They've been so used to doing this game for so long, and they've gotten away with it, that somebody beat them at their own game, and they didn't like it. And then all these investment trade firms like Robinhood and different ones out there forbid them from buying any more stock. They could sell their stock, but they could no longer buy it to try to right the market. So, yeah, that was a very interesting story to watch. And I thought you would want to hear the explanation in case you really didn't know what a short sale was. All right, so let's get to the next headline. This one, doctor tells NBC News, one mask isn't enough, neither is two, don't you dare even think about three. Doctor says Americans should now consider wearing 4 face masks. I'm not kidding you. Dr. Fauci has said that wearing 2 face masks provide 50 to 75% efficacy. 3 will reach 90%. But Dr. Scott Siegel from Wake Forest Baptist Health in North Carolina says, why stop at 90%? If you're going to put on 3, why not put on 4? It's going to filter better because it has lots and lots of layers. See, this is the problem when they started saying we needed to wear multiple masks. At what point does the absurdity kick in? I think at 2, it was absurd. Maybe even 1. Absurd to think that obstructing your mouth and your nose is not going to cause other problems besides preventing a virus particle from getting into your body. Do they really think 4 masks? And I'm not kidding you, that's the headline. I'll let you see it for yourself. Doctor says, let's put on 4 masks. And that's what they want us to do. Like for me, 1 mask, I do have very big trouble breathing. I had to go to a place the other day where they required me to wear a mask while I was in there. And I put on the surgical mask. I kept it below my nose so I could breathe because I have passed out wearing a mask, and that's no fun. But 4 masks. When does the madness stop? And I wrote a post yesterday all over social media that kind of joked, hey, why don't they just tell us to put a plastic bag over our head and then cover our neck with rubber bands to keep it out? That'll work. Oh, wait, you like to breathe? You don't want to stop breathing? Oh, okay. I guess there is that. Running away from a virus, pretending like wearing multiple masks is going to do anything. Yes, okay, maybe it'll stop a few droplets. Fair enough. But let's stop pretending like they are the great savior. We were hammered for almost a year. Just put on a mask, any mask, and you're doing your part. Well, guess what? Cases still went up. Just put on a mask, wear a mask, any mask, and we'll end this pandemic. Well, for the most part, most people have put on masks. And this pandemic, we still have high cases, which again, we can argue about the PCR test and the accuracy and da-da-da. It just keeps getting more absurd by the moment. Speaking of the pandemic, look out Pfizer and Moderna. Here comes the brand new V word for 9-1-DIVOC. It's called Novavax. The small biotech just reported terrific news for its V word. And so it's coming out. They just finished a late stage study in the UK for their V word. It reports that it achieves an efficacy rate of 89.3%, which is somewhat on par with the 94 and 95% from Moderna and Pfizer. The good news about this one is it can be stored in a refrigerator between 36 and 46 degrees. It's shipped in a ready-to-use liquid formulation. It does not require that ultra-cold storage. So it's the first V word to demonstrate high clinical efficacy against 9-1-DIVOC, but also significant efficacy against the new strains, supposedly, that are coming out of the UK and South Africa. So anyway, that is a new one that's out there. But this was not the one... Yeah, so this is not the one that is different than the ones that are already out there now. The one that's different is the one I'm about to tell you about now, is the one from Johnson & Johnson. It also is a V word that's almost here. It shows a 66% efficacy against the disease, but here's the thing. It only requires 1 shot. It just finished a large 44,000 person study, and it was effective at stopping severe disease, preventing 85% of severe infection, and nobody was hospitalized or died during the study. But the cool thing about this one is, unlike Moderna and Pfizer, it actually is not a messenger RNA V word. And so that's been the biggest concern. And so this different technology than the other ones, it's actually based on adenovirus, a cold germ modified to make copies of the spike protein, which the pathogen uses to work its way into a cell. So this is more like a traditional V word. And if I had to make commentary about that, if I had to absolutely get the V word, this would be the one I would take. So I'm not anti-V word, as people have tried to peg me. I'm anti the mRNA ones. Those have major concerns. Now, this one I have not examined closely enough, but Johnson & Johnson seems to be providing the first non-mRNA V word available. I want to see what else is in it. We do know that there are concerns about any V word, not just the mRNA ones, but I would feel more comfortable with the Johnson & Johnson one if I'm forced to take it. Now, when the push comes to shove and they say or they say that you have to take the V word, would you rather take one that's more like a traditional V word, or would you rather take this experimental one that's never been tested on humans before? I think it's a no-brainer. I'm hoping I don't have to take any of them. That's my choice. I don't want to take any V word. but it's looking more and more like if you don't get this V word and have proof thereof that you took it, you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to go to other countries, you won't be able to do a lot of things. And so that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But I hope if it does come down to a mandatory, you have to take it, that you get to choose which one you want and not just whatever random one your local hospital has. All right, and then the last item here, I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's a study that was released a couple weeks ago. And the study is in the journal Science. The title of the study, Immunological Memory to SARS-CoV-2 Assessed for Up to 8 Months After Infection. So what they wanted to see is, all right, you get immunity to 9-1-Divock. How long does that immunity last? Well, in the study, what they did was they wanted to see exactly that question. And they looked at antibodies, they looked at memory beta cells, they looked at CD4 T cells, CD8 T cell memory, and what they found was actually you have immunity a lot longer than they're telling us. They've been telling us, okay, if you get 9-1-Divock, you only get immunity that lasts for a few months, and then you have the susceptibility to getting it again. But this study in Science magazine, or Science journal, is saying otherwise. So guys, go look it up. Looks like Jennifer Dan is the lead author on this. Immunological memory to SARS-CoV-2 assessed for up to 10 months after infection. Very well done. They looked at kind of data over a 6+ month period, various people that have gotten this, and then re-exposing them out into the wild to this virus, and they're not getting it again. So they're still having the immunity. So all those people that say, well, the immunity is very short-lived, we now have a study that says otherwise. So if you joined us late, we are doing Ask Me Anything here today on Jimmy Rants. That is what we do on Fridays. Friday, I open up the floor for you guys to literally ask any question you want. You guys know me. I've been out there for years talking about low-carb ketogenic diets, cholesterol fasting. I've been podcasting for 15 years. I've been book writing pretty much feels like forever. 9 books total. So if you want to ask about that, if you want to talk about building a brand, pretty much whatever you want to talk about, let's just do the conversation. All right, so I'm going to go to the questions, some questions that I got ahead of time, and then I will come to you guys next. Get your questions ready, and we will commiserate here in a second. All right, so let's see if we can get on the screen. For some reason, it's not giving me the normal, because I had a couple of questions come in ahead of time, but Instagram has taken away one of the features. I used to have the feature. So if you're watching live and you asked me a question ahead of time, unfortunately, Instagram is giving me trouble popping that up on my screen because I took screenshots of what the questions were. I'm trying to remember what they were. One said, have you seen any improvements in your diet or in your health since you adopted a ketogenic diet? I think that was the crux of that one. And so the answer to that question is yes. I wrote a whole book about it, so go check out Keto Clarity, and you can see all the amazing benefits that come when you adopt a ketogenic diet. And I think sometimes when people start to focus on, well, did you see any benefits? That's code for weight loss. And I did see weight loss from eating keto. But to me, as I've gotten older and started to think about all the benefits I have experienced from eating low-carb keto, it's less about the weight and a whole lot more about all of these intangibles. How do you feel? How is your mood? How are your energy levels? I can tell you guys, I wake up early in the day, probably around 3 a.m., bounding out of bed, full of energy, ready to take on the world. And I credit keto for that. I credit keto for giving me clarity of mind and a calmness. I got to tell you, this past year, has been a test of the calming effects of keto for me, because I've had my moments and I'm dealing with a personal issue on top of all the other things with the pandemic and everything else. And I've stayed pretty chill through it all. And I think feeding your brain well, which is what a ketogenic diet does, helps kind of control those urges to freak out. So it doesn't mean I don't have my moments. I do still have my moments, but at the end of the day, I still get the benefits. And so the thing is, you'll continue to reap benefits even long after you've been on keto. Some people like to look at it like a diet mentality of, well, I go on a keto diet and I get these benefits, but then sometime they're going to go away. No, they stay, and you feel good. Like, I don't know. I that's the pitch to me. People are like, how do you convince people to eat keto? I'm like, you tell them how amazing they're going to feel. Don't worry about the weight loss. If that's appealing to them, I suppose mention it. But much more interesting to me are satiation, a feeling of elation, mood stabilization. I mean, I could go down the list. But again, for the person that asked that question, go read my book, Keto Clarity. It's why I wrote this book, because I didn't think enough people realized all of the amazing benefits that come from nutritional ketosis. But thank you for that question. Trying to remember what the other one was. I'm totally blanking on the second one. Yeah, because I remembered that one because it came in last night. All right, so there's a couple that have come in here. What would be your biggest tip to growing an engaged following if you don't have enough time to do it daily? So the main thing about growing an engaged following is consistency and knowing who you are, and basically not trying to go outside of who you are. So when I started doing my work, who I was an empowered patient. So when I started living La Vida Low Carb, it was before social media. So I have a little bit of an advantage that I came in a time before social media was around. Now social media is around. You kind of have to play the game of being in all these places simultaneously so you're seen and heard. But the primary thing I do, and what I say to people when I consult them about creating a brand and growing a following, is you need to figure out what makes you stand out from everyone else. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. Oh, I don't know why they're going to listen to me. And this person was a medical professional, not a doctor, but someone in the medical profession. I said, use your medical profession. Like, that's cool. Like, people want to see you've got moxie in the medical world, but then you happen to have knowledge about low carb diets as well. I said, do something with that. And so I always say, gravitate to those things that make you different than everyone else. What makes me different is I'm the empowered patient. I'm someone who has lived this a long time. Of course, by now I've grown enough of a following through my podcasting and book writing and these daily Jimmy rants and all the everything that I do, that pretty much people that find me now go, oh wow, like, where do I start? There's so much to consume. But I'm also a madman when it comes to making content. I know I make more content than probably most people in this space. But I love it. Like, that's my thing. I'm really productive at it. But if you're just starting to try to build your audience and get an engaged audience, engage with them. Ask open-ended questions in posts and on videos and stories and things that you do. Don't become complacent. Don't feel like you have to appease your audience either. Literally, I've never felt the compulsion to, what can I do today to write something, to say something that's going to draw in massively more people? I don't want to offend anybody and I don't want to turn people away. No, be you. Like, you guys stick around and watch me, not because you always agree with everything. And again, I hope you don't always agree with everything. You're a very strange person if you agree exactly with what Jimmy talks about all the time. I think what makes us interesting is we live who we are. There's no fakery about us. When you're real, people notice that and they want to engage in that real. So that would be all the things that I would say to that question. Thank you for that, though. Did Merck just exit the game completely in the V word? They are saying that natural infection beats the V word. Oh, I had not heard about Merck making that claim, but that's interesting. And I do think now that we're having more of the states open things up that have been on lockdown, now that we're seeing approval of some of the therapeutics out there to be used, now that we have enough people who have been exposed to this virus in the wild as well as through the V word, I think we're close to this thing being gone. Like, I know they keep trying to hype it and everything, but Merck might be onto something that they're like, you know what, it's not worth it because this thing's practically over. So that's my assessment. All right, guys, ask me anything. Your turn. Get your questions ready. We're going to come to you here in just a moment. We're going to go here first to Instagram, then over to Facebook, finally over to Twitch. Literally, get me your questions, you guys. JimmyRants.com is the website. Joshua says, if the masks work so well, why 2? Why 2? Why 3? Why 4? And again, at what point does it become an absurdity? To me, it's absurd definitely at 2. 3 and 4 is ultra absurd. And for some people, that 1 is everything they can do to prevent being traumatized again. Like, I don't think we're talking enough about how for some people wearing a mask is highly traumatizing. And I guess we're not supposed to worry about that. Well, the greater good is everybody wears one. You're heartless if you don't wear one. Well, what if that lady was raped and had a hand over the mouth while the rape was happening? And so all they feel when they have a mask over their mouth is that rapist's hands. Why don't we talk about that stuff? Why do we just assume you're just a bad person because you choose not to wear one? I'm over it, guys. And again, I articulated this in a post just this week. If I don't wear a mask, I'm not going to open my mouth out in public. If someone speaks to me like a checkout person at the grocery store saying thank you for coming, I'll wave. Don't open my mouth. What harm am I doing anyone if I'm choosing not to wear a mask because I value breathing and I don't say anything? How am I harming someone else? Anybody? Can anybody answer that question for me? Because I just don't understand. Now, if you're being a total turd ball about it and you're out in the public and you're screaming at people without a mask on, yeah, you're part of the problem. Go away. Like, I totally am in cahoots with you that those people are idiots. But if someone's just walking into establishment and they're not saying anything and they're keeping their mouth shut, why do you care they're not wearing a mask? It becomes a problem when they start talking, possibly. I still don't think it's a problem then, but let's play the game. I would think if you don't want to wear a mask, just keep your mouth shut. And in fact, I tried to negotiate that when I go into Costco, because they have a nationwide mandate on wearing a mask. And so they had a compromise. They gave me a face shield, and I've been using the face shield when I go in there to get my butter, primarily my Kerrygold butter. But yeah, keep my mouth shut. That should solve the problem. Amy says, I wanted to know if your doctor has said anything negative at all with your blood work or other concerns since going keto. Well, Amy, I went low carb back in 2004, went to see my doctor in January of 2005, and his first concern was about my cholesterol. Well, a doctor doesn't really understand everything about cholesterol, and I ended up having to write a whole book about that called Cholesterol Clarity. So to answer your question directly, my traditionally trained, doesn't know a damn thing about nutrition doctor, which is all doctors that haven't self-educated on nutrition, they have a problem with people that have high cholesterol. They look at things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But here's the thing. I'd lost 180 pounds. I was able to come off of 3 prescription medications because of the low-carb diet. I looked better, I felt better, had more energy. All the things of health, the signs of health were there. And so he wasn't happy that my cholesterol was high, but I had to push back. So honestly, to answer your question, you want to know if my doctor has said anything negative. I don't give a flying fuck what my doctor thinks. I can't say it any more blunt than that. And I have no disrespect to doctors, but doctors piss me off because they act like they are the great purveyors of all things about your health when they can't even recognize ketosis being a positive thing. And I've talked about this. I did a Jimmy Rants on this just this week about how at the very time they learned about insulin, they were also learning about the difference between ketosis and nutritional ketosis and ketoacidosis. And they just gave up on the learning about those differences because insulin was the grand savior of this whole process. So I have great respect for what doctors do well. And what they do well is critical care, urgent care. I break my arm, they put the arm back together. They're good at that. They're very bad at chronic stuff. They're very bad at nutritional health. They don't understand it because they're not trained in it. And so, honestly, I don't care what a doctor has to say that has not put in the effort to learn. Now, I'm going to give them a bit of a pass because they are under a system that requires them to see a patient out, see a patient out, see a patient out. And so it's factory farming, patient herding that they have to do all day, and then they go home and they're exhausted because they've patient after patient after patient, and most of it's prescription. Very little lifestyle change is promoted. You really can't explain to people anything meaningful about changing lifestyle other than you need to change your diet and lifestyle, you need to exercise more, you need to... What can you do in like 3 to 5 minutes along that line? So I love functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, nutrition-minded types of doctors, obviously ones that have become enlightened. And so those are the ones that I would put my trust in. And those are the ones that can see the ranges of things on like your blood work that actually matter. Like over 200 total cholesterol is not the end of the world. You go to your doctor, they think you're at great risk for heart disease because you got over 200 total cholesterol. You go to one that's a little more nutrition minded and has looked at all the research, and they'll tell you, yeah, 210, 250, it's really not a big deal within the context of all the other numbers. Your doctor's not paying attention to fasting insulin. Your doctor's not looking at HSCRP, a key inflammation marker in your body. Your doctor just doesn't care about what matters. And again, I can't say it any more blunt than that. So yes, doctors traditionally trained are going to have concerns, but their concerns are misguided. They need to educate themselves more. And unfortunately, most of them do not. Most of them get a God complex. And what I say is the gospel, and if you don't do it, you're an idiot, non-compliant patient, and they threaten to kick you off their rolls. I've seen it too damn much over the years to not feel a little bit jaded in that way. But the good news is we do have a lot of great medical health professionals who do understand this. Listen to my podcast, llvlc.com. I interview them all the time. I recently had a medical doctor, Dr. Kristen Baer. She works out at lowcarbmdsandiego.com is the website. And she and her partner in the business, Brian, they are both low-carb oriented medical doctors, and they sit down and they do this work that I'm talking about of explaining why your metabolic health is your health. And if you get your metabolic health in order, your immune system is strong. Basically, every part of your health gets better when you pay attention to metabolic health. So we need more like that. They are just two of about a few hundred here in America, a few, maybe around 1,000 worldwide, and that's it. So it needs to become more of the norm. But thank you for that question, Amy. Brian says it's all about improving your metabolic health. Totally. Literally, that is the thing, which has made this pandemic response so frustrating. is they want to tell us to wear 4 masks, but they don't want us to tell us stop eating crappy garbage. And Mike Mutzel, Metabolic Mike here on Instagram, has been just on a warpath of explaining that as well. Look, they've looked at everything except getting people to stop doing the very thing we know makes your metabolic health worse, which by extension of that makes your immune system worse. Most people who suffer from anxiety get an attack from the increase in CO2. Oh, talking about wearing masks, Joshua. Yeah, I just know I have had it on, and I do get very dizzy very fast. People say, oh, it's all in your head. Well, it's real to me. And I did pass out in a store. I literally collapsed because I need oxygen. I don't know if I have narrow passages in my nasal cavity or what it is, but I need to breathe. And so when I'm wearing a mask, I literally can't. Amy says, what's your opinion about gastric bypass or weight loss surgery in general? So my mom had gastric bypass a couple weeks actually before I started the Atkins diet back in 2004. And in general, I mean, I can see that people feel like they have to go that route. My mom was desperate, like literally desperate. She was around mid-50s, totally frustrated by years upon years upon years of trying every diet known to mankind, and most of them predicated on the low-fat diet. And she just got so frustrated. She's like, I want to take the easy way out, so let me get weight loss surgery. So she got gastric bypass. Now, I know they have the little modifications of it, so it's not cutting you open and everything, but people think that's going to be the grand cure. And here's the dirty little secret. Today, my mom is in her early 70s. And she's bigger today than she was when she got the weight loss surgery. And what happened was her stomach got cut down to a little pea size. And she used to go to a restaurant and could show them a card that says, look, I had gastric bypass. I need to be able to order off the children's menu because I can't eat a lot of food at one time. And over time, she started eating more and more and more, that little pea size started stretching and stretching and stretching. And now she's as big, if not bigger, than she was before the gastric bypass. So I think if you're going into a surgery like that with the expectation that it's going to be the be-all, end-all in your weight, I think you're setting yourself up to fail. I don't want to discourage anyone that thinks that might be the answer for them, but I would argue give the ketogenic diet with periods of fasting an honest try for at least 6 to 12 months before you ever consider going on a gastric bypass weight loss surgery. Because if you work with someone who can help you do keto well, if necessary, implement some periods of fasting well, if you work with someone who is a nutritionist or a doctor or somebody that can explain this and help you create a road to success, I don't see why you would need the gastric bypass. But even if you get it, it's not going to be this grand answer that people think it is. But thank you for that question. Charles says, what if you have a cholesterol, and I assume you mean total cholesterol, of 360 and a low-carb diet is practiced? I feel great except for sleep. I struggle with that one. So 360 doesn't really tell you a whole lot, Charles. So when you look at cholesterol numbers, you always have to look at the totality of the numbers. So Charles, if you're still watching live, please type in your triglycerides. Please type in your HDL cholesterol. And if you know it, what is your HSCRP, your inflammation number, any other numbers to give me a little more context. 360 doesn't really tell me a whole lot because 360 is based on the traditional cholesterol panel. And I've talked about this many times before, but on your traditional cholesterol panel, you've got HDL-C, LDL-C, triglycerides, and VLDL, okay? So they get the total cholesterol by adding up the HDL, the LDL, and the VLDL. Well, guess how they figure out the LDL on that traditional panel. The HDL, they directly measure. The triglycerides, which is a proxy marker of your VLDL. Basically, your VLDL is whatever your triglycerides are divided by 5. Okay? So that's how they come up with VLDL. So if your triglycerides happen to be under 100, which is very normal when you eat a low carbohydrate diet, and your HDL happens to be over 50, which when you eat enough healthy fats as part of a ketogenic diet, you're also going to see that happen, go over 50. When you've got those numbers in those ranges, guess what happens to the estimation of the LDL-C? It overestimates it. So as much as 100 points. So yes, you have a 360 total cholesterol. But I wonder how much of that is skewed because your LDL is miscalculated. You see what I'm saying? And so other things that I would want to see is what's the particle breakdown of your cholesterol. So there is this test you can have run called an NMR lipoprofile test. It's from this company called Liposcience up in North Carolina. And those guys will actually look at the number of LDL particles because you either have a preponderance of the small, dense LDL particles, that's called pattern B, or a preponderance of mostly large, fluffy LDL, very benign, can't harm you, and that's called pattern A. And when you have triglycerides under 100 and HDL over 50, no matter what your total cholesterol is, no matter what your LDL-C is, if you have pattern A, you're pretty much safe from any kind of risk of heart disease. I would also look for a CT heart scan, so you can have a CAT scan done of your chest. Your doctor will prescribe this. You go down to this little radiology department, about 3 minutes, they can do a CT of your chest cavity, and they're looking for actual signs of disease, actual calcified plaque. I've done this twice in the past decade. I'm about due to have it done again. But twice in the past decade, and both times came back a big fat 0 on the calcium score. And that's despite eating an upwards of 70+% fat diet. So those are all things that I think would be very interesting for you to run, to see where you stand, and to see if that 360 means anything. 360 literally is like a baseball game, knowing the end score, cumulative score was 30. You don't know if it was 29-1 blowout. You don't know if it was a barn burner, 16-14, close game. You just don't know what that means. It's out of context without the other numbers. So if you have the other numbers, feel free to share and I'll be happy to follow up. Joshua says gastric bypass is not a substitute for lifestyle change. A lot of people think it's the easy way. And I watched my mom suffer. When she had the gastric bypass, within the first 2 months, she was in and out of the hospital from dehydration and from malnutrition. She was not eating enough protein. She was not drinking enough water. And it caused her problems. And she was doing great. She did end up losing 100 pounds, but then she got frustrated. She also had an abusive husband who's now dead, but he would always want junk food, so she'd have to be around the junk food, and it was tempting, and da-da-da-da-da. So that's what happened. I totally agree. Keto low carb works. I agree with what you said about the surgery. Well, awesome. What are your thoughts on long-term keto, says Holly. Carnivore, sorry. Long-term carnivore. Long-term keto or long-term carnivore. I have the same opinion. I think if you feel good on that way of eating, why would you stop? What would be the reason you would ever come off of something? If you're feeling good, you're getting benefits, you got the energy, why would you not do that forever? And I'm assuming there's a follow-up question to this, Holly, of why you're asking thoughts on long-term carnivore. Are you concerned? What are your concerns? Share those, and I think that'll help me answer your question a little more thoroughly. But no, I have no trouble with a long-term carnivore approach. I think if you feel good doing that, go for it. Sergio says, after discovering you, I haven't gotten sick in about 2 years. My siblings still have the white coat syndrome. Yeah, and thank you, by the way, for your kind comment. White coat syndrome is a thing. people just still trust so verifiably what their doctor says. And again, I'm not trying to dismiss doctors. I think they've been highly educated and in dealing with like acute disease. They just don't have any knowledge about long-term chronic diseases. And to me, most of the people dying, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, those are long-term chronic metabolic diseases that unfortunately they have no expertise in whatsoever. So why do we want to hear what they have to say about those things? It's why I think the medical system is broken. If people are going to the doctor for those things, we need to have a separate part of medicine that deals with chronic disease. Doctors should still be in place to fix broken bones and sew cuts back together with stitches. That's what they're good at. They're not good at chronic disease control and prevention. Charles says, appreciate it. I don't have any insurance. I read your book and took the test. Good thing I'm getting blood tests next week. I will ask for a full panel in your book. I've had the CT scan and have a 0. Yes. See, Charles? Even though you have the high total cholesterol, it doesn't mean you're having problems. So good for you. Joshua says, what do you say to people who say that carnivore keto decreases your microbiome diversity? I would say that I don't think it decreases anything. I think it probably decreases those that are dependent on the carbohydrates. But who says we need those? Who says that those didn't pop up in our microbiome from hunter-gatherer days through agricultural to try to adapt and try to keep us healthy because we were eating an inferior diet? That would be my response. Maybe these new organisms that pop up in the gut microbiome, they had to pop up to deal with the carbohydrate in your diet. So if you don't eat carbohydrate, either on a keto or carnivore diet, and yes, that's going to shift your body over to less diversity because you don't need as much diversity. That would be my argument. And if you don't feed those ones that thrive on carbs, okay, what does that do? We don't know is the honest answer. There's still so much we don't know about gut microbiome that people can't make a proclamation one way or the other just yet. Holly says, I feel good, just my family thinks I'm nuts, except my husband because he's low carb, not just carnivore. Well, your family can think what they want. You aren't doing it for them. The last time I checked, they're not the ones paying your medical bills. They're not the ones who have to account for the choices you make in your life. You are. And so I'm so over people feeling like they have a right to tell you how you live your life. It's kind of like what we're having right now about things in our life. And I'm like, all right, you think you can do it better than me? Come pay my house payment. If you think you can do it better than me, you pay my bills. But they're not willing to do all that. Just got blood work back, says Prague Queen. Fasting insulin is 5.7. Oh, I hate you. Is that okay? Yes, it's very okay. Damn it. Glucose was 87. That's awesome, Prague Queen. I'm celebrating with you, but 5.7 is incredible. Under 10 is unbelievable. And a lot of the perfection if you're trying to really, really optimize under 5, and you're almost there. You're practically there. So good job. Keep up the great work. Damn it. Mine struggles to get down that low just yet. I'm still working on it, but someday. Charles says, I check in regularly. Your sleep stats are admirable. What do you do for sleep, if anything? It's strange when your ketone and energies are up, you don't get to sleep. I know cortisol is going up there. Well, I've worked on mine for a very long time, Charles, quite frankly, my sleep. And I have dialed in certain sleep habits. I did a whole post on this actually this week. So go back on my social media and you'll see the post where I showed 5 days in a row. I had well over 4 hours of combined REM and deep sleep. But I do get damn good sleep because I've worked on it a long time. Primarily, I keep the sleep environment cold and dark. I stop eating and drinking except sips of water. After 3 p.m., I don't really eat anything. I get sunlight in my eyes, so it's sunny out there today. I get sunlight in the eyes, not staring at the sun, but sunlight in the eyes throughout the day, so my body knows the circadian rhythm. I have low lighting at night. What else do I do? I do some infrared and red light therapy as well, which kind of mimics some of the sun. I do a lot of things. And when you put your body in that state where you're setting yourself up to succeed, then that's definitely going to help. Am I involved in that study from the Oura Ring? Brian says. So I do wear an Oura Ring, and that's how I have all the sleep data. Which study? Now, they did a 9-1 Divox study, Brian, last year, and I was a part of that study. That study ended somewhere around September or October. Every single day. Yes, so the UCSF, that's the 9-1 Divox study. They ended that one in October. I think they're assimilating the information now, but they had me check in with my body temperature. I took my temperature every day. Have I had a positive case or diagnosis of 9-1 Divox? What are my symptoms, if I have any? And some days I felt bad, and I would, provide the symptoms. I'm in a new one now. Okay. All right. Yeah, they didn't invite me to the new one. I was in the last one with 9-1 Divox. And I loved it. It was cool being a part of some research. All right, Instagram, thank you for all those wonderful questions. Let's pop over here now to my Facebook page. Coming to you guys next over on Twitch. So thank you. Keep your questions coming. What's up, Facebook? Let's see what you have to say. When is Dr. Will Cole coming back to Real Talk, says Norma. Well, he's not. Will decided to move on. And he told me in November that he got an opportunity to do his own podcast solo that was a part of the Goop group. And so I was like, dude, go for it. If you got your own podcast, you don't need me. You don't need to do that. So Real Talk will remain intact as a solo podcast with Jimmy for now. And that's okay. I love interviewing people outside of just talking about nutrition all the time, and Real Talk avails me of that. Now, a lot of the guests that I've had on there do talk about nutrition. Next Thursday is an example of one where we don't talk about nutrition. I have Dr. Dan French coming on talking about the use of rhetoric and how it's been used and abused in our culture. So that'll be fun. But yeah, Will decided to move on. It's all good. But yeah, that's the answer. Berkeley says, I've been trying to get back on keto carnivore. I have those periods when I feel shaky or nauseous. My blood sugar is fine. Have you heard of this reaction? Yeah, it's usually electrolytes. Make sure you're getting ample salt. Also, make sure you're eating enough. Sometimes the shakiness and nauseousness can come from undereating. Not knowing exactly what you're eating, Berkeley, could be a little bit difficult in predicting that maybe there's a food that could be causing that. I know people try to add MCT oil, and that can make them nauseous to their stomach. So if you want to send me privately like what you're eating, I'd be delighted to take a look at what you're eating. But I would highly recommend just gravitate more to the animal-based foods to start. And then later you can add in the other things if you want to, but try to focus primarily almost mostly carnivore type of diet, and that'll probably help fix some of that. David said, I've asked you about this before and you answered, but I'm still curious about your thoughts. You have every gadget known to man. I do. And I have no apologies for that. I am a geek when it comes to all these little gizmos and gadgets that help you track your health. The potentials of infecting other people. I know you don't open your mouth when you go out, but for your own personal safety, why not buy a really good quality N95 to wear in a store? Do you have a political aversion? No, I'll answer that one. Personally, I just don't see the downside, only upside when you use N95. You said you have problems breathing. Do you know why that is? I don't know why. I just know the what. And the what is I don't breathe well and I have passed out wearing a mask in a store. That's not fun. I love that you don't want to live in an echo chamber. I don't. So thank you for that. So, look, I don't open my mouth. So what's the argument for why I need one. And again, I'm highly respectful. I don't even just keep 6 feet of distance from people. When I'm in a store not wearing a mask, I'm literally 15, 20 feet away. So there's no way possible that my mouth's shut 15, 20 feet away from you. In fact, if there's somebody blocking the aisle, I will go all the way around, go all the way down the aisle, come all the way back the other way, just to avoid walking right by them. So I'm doing my part. And, thankfully, I'm a big boy, 6'3". Most people aren't going to say, hey, you need to wear a mask. So I haven't been harassed, but I'm incredibly kind and incredibly gentle with this subject. And I have no qualms about not wearing a mask. If I'm asked to put one on, I either politely ask, can I please pull it below my nose? And if they say no, I leave the store. I just, so I make that choice. Most people don't give me any trouble. And I'm able to live my life and go about freely. And if someone is literally that scared of someone not wearing a mask, they are the ones that need to take action, not me. Not me. If I'm being responsible when I'm out, and they don't like it that I'm not wearing a mask, they can stay home and live their lives in fear. Jimmy Moore does not fear a damn thing. He doesn't. And if that makes me a bad person, so be it. In my eyes, I'm living my life. I'm being responsible. I'm being kind. I'm not being a jerk about it. And if you're still fearful of that, you need to stay home. That's my answer. All right, thank you, Facebook. Lots of good questions. All right, Twitch, your turn. And a reminder, you guys, go download the Twitch app. It's real easy. It's available wherever you get your apps. Twitch, TWITCH, and you can follow me over there, Jimmy Moore Rants. Just like Cariana, who has the comment, between the authoritative power grab, censorship, and all the rest, I'm having a tough time shaking all of the impending doom. Well, the advice I'd give you on that is don't dwell on all that. Can I be honest? I have literally tuned out a lot of that kind of news. And quite frankly, I am someone who likes to stay on top of information, but I found myself falling into a bit of malaise mentally. And this is kind of a process of know thyself. If you find yourself kind of getting into a down and depressed state, you need to remove that stimulus that's causing that. Imagine it this way. Imagine you were in a relationship with somebody, family member, spouse, whoever. And every morning, that spouse or family member just came up and went, cold cocked you in your face. And you'd be like, what just happened? Okay. And then you act like nothing happened. You just go about your day and da-da-da-da. Next morning, you go into the kitchen to get your coffee, and that family member or spouse punch you again. And you're like, why do I feel like crap? My God. That's what you're doing when you expose yourself to all that information on the news media all the time. You're letting them punch you right in the nose every single day. So stop it. Stop all of that. I know you might be like, oh, I need to stay informed. No, you don't. Not to that level. Not if you know it's causing you more harm than good. I'd say stop exposing yourself to it so much. Do things enjoyable. Do things that will bring you more happiness. Do less of the things that are bringing you down. But I hope that helps. Shirley says, I get anxiety wearing any mask. I would probably die with 4 of them on. Yeah, well, you and me both. If we block 100% of our air, I guess that's 100% effective, which is why I made the joke, Shirley, about we should just all put plastic bags over our heads and then secure it with rubber bands. That would prevent the virus. At what point does the absurdity kick in? And I think we're there. Saya says, everything but my alkaline phosphatase was amazing. It was low, the alkaline phosphatase at 37. Keto has been amazing for me, and you've been a great motivator with all the information. Thank you. And by the way, on your number that's a little out of whack, don't have any trepidation about one test result. I think we put all of our eggs in a basket of any one result. Oh my gosh. I think I've told this story before where I had a checkup one time and my PSA, which is a key prostate health marker, blood marker for guys. And it had always been under 1, which is optimal health, usually around like 0.8, 0.7. And this one time it came back 20.6. Now, it was one marker, 20.6. I'm going, what in the world? So it turns out I had a urinary tract infection. And that's how it was discovered, was in this blood test. So don't always assume that if you have something awry in your numbers, it could be the lab is off, or it could be an underlying issue that once that's taken care of, like this urinary tract infection, then, and I had to go on antibiotics and different things, but then once it's healed, then you test again, and I did with the PSA, and it was back down to 0.7 again. So it was really nothing to worry about. But thank you, by the way, for talking about how my work has influenced you. I literally do that for that reason. All right, thank you, Twitch. Let's come back over here to Instagram for any last questions that might have come in. Other people's fears don't need to be my problem. Well, they don't, do they? If someone is literally that scared, stay home. Why is that onus on me that you're scared, and so therefore I need to acquiesce to what you want? Damn it, it's hard enough living for Jimmy, much less trying to live for other people. And I refuse. I don't live for other people. I am who I am, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And see, again, I'm not doing it with any malintent involved. I'm totally living my life, and I'm paying attention to you by keeping my mouth shut, not wearing a mask, and keeping my distance upwards of 20 feet from you. You know, if I was all up in people's faces and then screaming and spitting and da-da-da, and all these videos I see online of people screaming at each other, okay, yeah, that's a problem, but not what I'm doing. People could wear a full chemistry suit if they're that scared. And what's funny is on some of the airplanes, you have those people come on and they look like they got a hazmat suit all over their body. I'm like, all right, that's taking it to an extreme. But all right, guys, we are out of time for Ask Me Anything, and that's all the time we have for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, please engage live in the content. We do go live Monday through Friday right here on the Jimmy Rants Instagram page at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so join us, you guys. We also simulcast over on my Facebook page. Thanks for being here, you guys, as well as over on the Twitch app. Be sure to download Twitch and type in the username Jimmy Moore Rants to follow. Parisa says, do you think a person gets autophagy faster if they're slimmer versus someone who's taller and slightly overweight? I don't think your body mass has any bearing on that, because the autophagy is cleaning up the dead cells in the body. It doesn't really have anything to do with the body fat per se. So it's a great question. I've literally never heard anybody ask about that, but I can't imagine a scenario why autophagy would be faster in someone slimmer than someone taller and overweight. But a great question. Ask Dr. Fung about that. I would love to hear his answer. Again, autophagy is cleaning up those dead proteins just floating around the body, and I don't see why there would be more or less or a lack of ability to deal with those just because of what your particular BMI is. If you missed the live, you can watch it on the replay right here on the Jimmy Rants Instagram page. Just watch it on IGTV. We also put the past episode up over on Twitch, so go check it out over there, as well as over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show. And then finally, the official website, JimmyRants.com, has all the past episodes there. So have a great weekend, you guys. Appreciate you being here all week long. I have so many articles printed out. I think I have 2 to 3 weeks worth of Jimmy Rants topic ideas already printed out. A bunch of studies. I'm thinking about doing a full week of just studies, but I kind of like to break up the studies. So maybe I'll do a couple of them next week with a couple of regular topics and then a couple more studies the next week. I'll decide over the weekend. It's kind of what I do on the weekends. I chill out and then come back excited for a new week. So we will see you again on Monday. Bye.